All right. Okay, so I'm Thomas Leager. We have Joel Brown co-hosting for the relaunch of this show, the Liberty Show with from the Freeman Report. We have Zach Vorhies. I'm kind of nervous myself. Sorry about that. If I kind of sound a little robotic right now, I'm just kind of starstruck. So we have Zach Vorhies, Google whistleblower, Joey Gibson from Patriot Prayer. I mean, you guys are I would say two of the biggest names in 21st century civil disobedience. I think you guys are prime examples of what made this country great and what is going to make this country great again, which is seeing things that are perceived as okay but are not, and using position or just using whatever resources you have to and self-sacrifice to fight the system, to buck the system and say, hey, we're not going to take this. We had in the beginning of our country, we had people like Ralph Waldo Emerson, Henry David Thoreau, Walden, transcendentalists that were really steeped in this. If something's wrong, whether it seems right or whether people act like it's right, if you know that it's not, doing something, going out and disobeying, and, let come what may, justice be done though the heavens fall. We need to push ourselves to live up to the examples of the past and the present to change what we see as not being just and justice in America. I guess I'm going to start with Joey Gibson, founder, leader of Patriot Prayer. I'm sure everybody who's watching this has seen his work. So I guess the biggest thing is, first off, do you take any inspiration from like Thoreau, Emerson, MLK, Gandhi, all those guys that kind of exhibit the same thing that you do? Do you take inspiration from them? Is that kind of what led you to standing up and doing something and kind of putting yourself in harm's way sometimes?
Well, Thoreau actually had a huge impact on me when I was 16 years old. I was raised in a very privileged family. By privileged, not talking about race or anything like that. I'm just talking about my father worked his ass off and did a good job building a company. And so my family had it real well. My parents didn't they didn't give me everything. They paid for my clothes and my food, and they gave me a nice roof over my head. Everything else I had to work for, so I was blessed. I remember reading Thoreau when I was 16. I started to realize how I started to get curious about being homeless. Like I wanted to live a life where I had little. 18 years old, I ended up like going and just living in the woods, backpacking. I was homeless for quite a while, sleeping at different friends' houses once in a while, but did a lot of backpacking, had a lot of cold nights, digging through trash cans, stuff like that. But in terms of really having an impact on my life, definitely Martin Luther King Jr., Jesus, and then Gandhi's up there too, in terms of, it's unbelievable that Gandhi was able to free an entire country through nonviolent resistance, basically by winning over the hearts and minds of the people. Gandhi showed us, and so did Jesus and Martin Luther King Jr., they showed us that it's not about proving your enemies wrong. It's not about revenge towards your enemies. That's not even going to get the job done. It's about winning over the hearts and minds of all the moderates in the country. So that's why the elitists and the globalists and far left people who want control, that's why they do everything they can to paint me as an extremist, right? Because they don't want moderates to be attracted to my message or anyone's message when it comes to God and freedom. And so, yeah, definitely Jesus basically started the biggest revolution in the world by allowing people to crucify him, right? He took the cross, which was a symbol of oppression. It was a symbol of fear. It was a symbol of everything that is the opposite of God, the opposite of Jesus. It was a symbol of tyrants is what it was, right? And Jesus took that he flipped it. He flipped that message and he brought hope to that symbol. And so, and another thing about Jesus that impacts me a lot is that the day that he was crucified, he walked in there and everybody left him. Everybody. And think about how hard that must have been for him spiritually, emotionally, because he had the same feelings and thoughts that we all have as humans. But he still was courageous enough to walk in there and just allow the world to spit on him, to make fun of him, to physically put him through pain, but not only that, spiritually. And at the end of the day, one of his last words on the cross, right, with a flip, like that, him and God could have destroyed the world for what they did to him. But he asked God, he said, God, forgive them, for they know not what they've done. And that has a huge impact on me. I mean, that's the path. That's how we cure this. All the problems in this world is the path of forgiveness, because that is the path that Jesus walked. And without that path, if Jesus didn't walk that path of forgiveness, if Jesus decided to go the route of hatred or revenge, because he had that choice, then we wouldn't even be here. We wouldn't even have this opportunity to live this life. So yeah, absolutely.
I agree 100%. Zach, do you take any inspiration for what you did when you came out? Because you could have just stayed in Google. You could have, led a really cushy life working for Google, I would assume. You could have, just been like, it's not my problem. I don't really have any responsibility. I'm just a worker. Do you take any of that, any inspiration from like the early, civil disobedience types like Thoreau, like Emerson, MLK Jr., Jesus?
Yeah, so I kind of want to add to what Joey said about Jesus, and that is that you have to realize that at the time that Jesus emerged, there was a lot of like psychological and spiritual warfare going on to the people. And what had happened is that the people, like their indoctrination into the culture, created a false reality. And there was a lot of division. And what Jesus Christ came is that he showed the people how to break the grips of the mind control program that was being inflicted on the people, and how to defeat that really evil system. And I personally draw inspiration from Jesus Christ, because I feel that I'm resonating with some of that same energy, the desire to show the people the true state of the world, which I believe is I now believe is fallen. I didn't before. But now it's clear that it has, with the revelations that have come out in the last 3 years. And by resonating with the truth, I hope to break that deception that has the vice-like grip on the people of the earth. Because instead of a regional, operation, this is a operation that is truly global in scale. Google is a multinational corporation with its tentacles across the world. And I was in a unique position to awaken to the reality of the way that the world, and see that Google was making attempts in order to systematize deception and push that to all of its billions of users that use its service. And that terrified me. I did not want to see that reality. And so I realized that I had the responsibility to bring this information to the people, to the public, to the Justice Department, in order to stop a timeline that I saw was unfolding. And so, yeah, that's what I did, and that was what brings me here. So, yeah, I do find inspiration in Jesus Christ.
Actually, that brings me to something I wanted to ask you as well. Did you ever feel like Winston from 1984? Because like I feel like working at Google would be a lot like that. Like, oh, things go down the memory hole. Because like when I was reading, it just I actually watched you on Infowars, and that's when I decided to reach out to you because I was watching it, and 1984 is a book that resonates with me so hardcore because it's not about the state just controlling the people. It's about the state controlling reality, like the Ministry of Love and the ministry of, it's like all these like disconnects between, or dissonance between like thought and reality. Like I forget what the guy's name was, but he's got Winston in the basement of the Ministry of Love, and he says, just because, and this is paraphrasing, he's I don't have to fly. As long as I can make the world believe I'm flying, then that's all that matters. So that's the scariest thing about Google to me, is that they have the ability to not just control elections, but control our basic perception of reality, of history. Who controls the past controls the future. Who controls the present controls the past, type thing. So yeah, did you ever feel like Winston from 1984?
Oh yeah, like I was in the middle of it, and I see it for the way that it really is, and I realized that well, an organization can survive a lot of different attacks, like an attack from the front, but they cannot survive treason within.
Yeah.
And so once I saw Google performing seditious activities against the duly elected president of the United States by deleting words out of the Arabic translation dictionary, that's when I realized that I had not only the knowledge, but also the opportunity to let the world know that this is what Google was doing. And unlike, Winston in 1984, I wanted to be able to get out of this alive, which, I've considered that I probably wouldn't. Something bad would happen, and something bad could still happen. And
that's a hard thought to reckon with.
I mean, everyone has to come to grips with their own mentality at some point. The question is, what do you do in that time span that you're alive?
That's true.
And I kind of wanted to step in as well here and ask Zach as well. So I'm kind of curious. So you've been with Google for about 8 years, if I recall. Now, tell me, what was it like when you first started, as opposed to when you actually released these documents? What changed?
So I would describe Google as a liberal company when I joined in 2008. And I worked from 2008 until 2013, and then from 2016 to 19. It was a very liberal company.
Correct.
They were sort of like apolitical. They just wanted to create the best search experience for their users.
Now, keep in mind as well, you say liberal. I'm so glad you said that. It's very important to distinguish between liberalism and modern day leftism. Liberalism liberalism is supposed to be about freedom, abiding by the Constitution, personal liberty, and all of those things. And it's very, very important that we don't forget what that actually means.
Yeah, and you have the exact same definition that I intended, which is liberal means individual liberty. Not getting in the way of someone's individual prosperity, and let the marketplace of ideas generate the best outcome. Now they've turned into a authoritarian leftist organization / Marxist organization, and that change started in 2016, a week after Donald Trump won the election.
And that's exactly what I had imagined. That's exactly what I imagined. Now, it's interesting. You mentioned a 3-year gap as well in between your employment there. Now, well, from what I've seen, you're somewhat of an entrepreneur as well, right? You've created something called turn signal gloves. Can you tell us what exactly those are?
Yeah, so I took a bicycle glove and I put on glowing turn signals onto each hand. And then when someone wants to signal left or right on a bicycle while they're riding on the street, they stick out their hand and they click their fingers together, the index finger and thumb, and then the lights come on. And so they're like this, and they're like this, and it's prevented injuries. I think it's saved at least one life. It's saved my life. I had a car on a dark night take a really fast left turn, and I was wearing the gloves, and I just happened to blink them, and that bright light just stopped the car immediately in its tracks. So kind of a fortunate, almost divine intervention moment.
That's remarkable. Wow, that is really something. Very cool. You don't have them with you right now, do you?
I do. Yeah. You want to see them?
Absolutely.
Okay, hold on.
Well, Zach's. There we go.
Yeah, feel free
well,
to step
Zach's getting those gloves. Joey, yeah, I had a question, and now I lost it. So, like, what did you think? When you started doing Patriot Prayer, what did you think the end result was going to be?
Not this. That's actually that's something that I love to tell people, is that because I started Patriot Prayer by holding flags on a street, right? And so, but holding flags on a street seems very small, and it is. It's really, it's not going to have a huge impact, but it's a million times more powerful than doing nothing. And that's kind of my message to people, is that when you just go out and try to do something, no matter how small, there's no limit on where that will take you, right? There's so many possibilities as long as you stick to it and you keep going. But if you are doing nothing, right? If you're sitting at home and you're passionate about the Constitution, you're passionate about God, but you keep your mouth shut, you're not doing anything, then nothing's going to happen. That's the only guarantee in life, is when you don't try. And so all I did was make a commitment that I'm not going to quit. And I made a commitment that I'm going to face my fears, right? Like public speaking and put, I didn't even like social media. I opened up my first social media account to organize my first rally. I didn't like social media because I wasn't comfortable with my face being out there. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I don't know. I was a very shy guy. So yeah. So I had no idea.
That's cool. That's kind of how I started, but let's see these gloves, man.
Oh, that's awesome.
That is so cool. And those were created by you.
Yep. I created them. I manufactured them. I sold them on Kickstarter, and now I'm selling them at zackies.com.
That's amazing, man. That's very cool. Very cool. Now, one of the big things that I really wanted to know as well, Zach, now, this may come to a surprise to the audience. I'm guessing a lot of people don't know about this, so I'd like for you to kind of clarify. I've seen you mention that Google is actually meddling not only in the American elections for 2020, but as well as foreign elections as well. Mm-hmm. More specifically, Ireland. That's one prime example. Can you explain to the audience exactly what they're doing in Ireland?
Yeah, so I disclosed the meddling in the disclosure that I did through Project Veritas. And there's 950 pages. And in one of the PDFs, which is called YouTube Query Blacklist, you can scroll through that, and it's a 40-page document. And in there is a blacklisted phrase, which is the 8th Amendment to the Constitution of Ireland. And I thought that was really strangely specific, and kind of terrified that Google, or actually YouTube, would blacklist the constitutional amendment so that people couldn't find information related to that. I did some searching. Well, actually, do you know what the 8th Amendment to the Constitution of the Republic of Ireland is?
I was just about to say, for those that don't know, it involves abortion.
It involves abortion. So it's the right to life. So in order for Google to advance its agenda, it went ahead and blacklisted this phrase so that no one can search for it, and on YouTube. And I saw this and I went, how is this not election meddling? And what's really weird is that, Google's like, oh, democracy, oh, democracy, oh, democracy. And then for me to see that they were, tweaking their algorithms so that, their leftist agenda could be, passed in another country. Well, that sort of betrays all of their, libertarian/liberal policies that they had. Like here they are acting as authoritarians. There's also another instance that I saw, which was the Supreme Court of Brazil convicted Google of meddling in their elections by burying positive information on the now president of Brazil,
Bolsonaro, yeah. Wow, that's amazing. I didn't know that. So it's very similar to what's happening right now with Donald Trump in America, correct?
Yeah, it's the exact same thing, right? Like
That's
they're burying information about Hillary Clinton so that you can't find information on her Clinton body count.
Right. And you know what's fascinating too? Google has been under oath in front of Congress and directly lied to the public. And it's like, what's going on here? Where are the arrests? Where are the indictments? What's happening, you know?
I know. And what's really interesting is that there was a QA by, I think his name is Karim Bhatia. He is one of Google's representatives that speaks to Congress.
Mm-hmm.
And they were asking him, actually, I can just find it right now because it's in my chat logs.
Absolutely.
And what he stated, it's right here. Okay, cool. Yes or no? Does Google search promote, demote, prioritize, or block content based in whole or part on its assessment of the content's truth or falsity? If so, please specify each way in which Google does so. So this is what he had to say. As our quote unquote how search works end quote page describes, available at this URL, we consider many factors in delivering the best search content to users, including relevancy and quality of content. But truth or felicity is not a factor our algorithms use. In addition, as described in our written submitted testimony, there are some narrow circumstances in which Google may remove search results such as child sexual abuse imagery or links to spam or malware, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so he says that Google does not use true or false. What I was able to show in a post that I haven't done yet is that this is completely contradicted by their search quality results that they've released to the public that describes, all right, this is section 3.2, and it's titled Expertise, Authoritativeness, and Trustworthy Score. This is known as EAT. So expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. This is what they have to say. Remember that the first step of page quality rating is to understand the true purpose of the page. Websites or pages without some sort of beneficial purpose, including pages that are created with no attempt to help users, or pages that potentially spread hate, cause harm, or misinform or deceive users, should have the lowest rating. So how is Google assigning its authoritativeness and trustworthiness score? Would you believe that it uses Wikipedia as its main source for ranking a website?
That's unbelievable.
Yeah. So this is the latest example of perjury that Google has or continues to do in under oath testimony to Congress.
I have a question. Wow. First off, a trustworthiness score. Like, isn't that sort of like a social credit score, except just for your website? Like, so if you say something that Google disagrees with, then they're going to give you, they can call anything hateful, really, and then just downgrade you, and then you don't get the results. Like, even if you're the best fit for what this person is looking for, they're not going to show you the website you're looking for if they don't agree with what's on that website.
Right, and that's already happening. We're seeing devastating results now in the alternative health sector, which is based on nutritional information as the source to treat the diseases that afflict the majority of people. And these are people like Mercola, Green Med Info, Bulletproof, Honey Colony, and others. What they've seen is that they've seen their traffic collapse by 95 all the way up to 99%. And the reason for this is supposedly their PageRank score has gone down. Now, why is their PageRank score gone down? Because Wikipedia is now slandering these sites as quacks and, that they're biased, that they're selling false hope, and personally attacking the people that are running these websites. As a result, the page rank of their websites also goes down. And as a result, they no longer are able to compete against places like WebMD. Now, WebMD is big pharma, and many of their articles are so bad that the author doesn't even want to put his name on it. These articles act as a funnel so that when anyone has a problem or a disease, something like WebMD will point them going into and seeing a specialist, a doctor, in order for them to try to, fix their problems. Why does, WebMD and Big Pharma want you to go see your doctor? Because the way that a doctor fixes your problems is by prescribing medication that comes from these corporations that have patented that medication and are making 1,000x markup on the product. This is the true way that Big Pharma wants to fix your problems. And as a result, these nutritional-based sites that are pointing out that there are damaging effects of glyphosate, that people are chronically low in vitamin D3, B12, that a lot of people that have problems with methylation are the same people that have complications because of vaccine administration. And all these things are causing people to doubt the established Western medical corporate system. As a result, their PageRank scores have gone down. And as a result, they've seen their user traffic delivered by Google collapse. And now everyone in the industry at this point is in a panic because overnight Google just destroyed their health sector. And now they have to figure out a different way in order to get relevancy back on the Google search engine.
I have another question, and this kind of goes, I want to lead it into a question for Joey as well. So in your experience with Google, have you seen the government sector, the public sector, insulating, helping these Google or any industry or private sector entities that favor the left? Like, is the public sector favoring the left-leaning private sector?
I mean, sure they did. Obama granted Google the net neutrality law, essentially, like handed to them this thing that said the data service providers will not be able to charge you a free market rate on the bandwidth that you're using. And so what that did is that pushed all of Google's data traffic to the edges. So the cost to the edges. So that means that Joe Schmo pays a higher Comcast bill because the upstream, usage of that data is not being paid for by Google. And so as a result, they were able to load those costs onto the taxpayer. It also was a benefit to these globalist network corporations because the amount of paperwork necessary to comply with net neutrality was so onerous that it destroyed the free market in the local markets. The cost of compliance was just so high that if you were just someone that just wanted to take $100,000 and start up an internet company, it made that essentially impossible. And so it funneled all of the internet users to these few companies like Comcast. And so, okay. Yeah, that's kind of like what happened. And by the way, when the net neutrality thing went in, Google canceled all of its internet offerings. It's Google Fiber, and also they had a new internet wireless standard they were worked on. Like within a month, those were shelved, and they didn't work on it anymore because they realized that they weren't going to have to compete. They weren't going to have to do any of that. They just basically got super cheap internet access that was paid for by mostly the taxpayer.
Okay. And so that's the same thing I'm going to ask. I ask this because I want viewers to see that not only is Google, because people are going to say, well, Google is a private company, but Google and other leftist entities are being insulated from competition.
Mm-hmm.
And we're also going to, and that's why I'm going to ask Joey the same thing. Have you seen the government in Portland, in the western parts of our country, insulating leftist domestic terrorists, where they wouldn't? Have you seen the police stand down? Have you seen the local governments kind of just glance over Antifa while not granting the same immunities to Patriot or right-wing conservative organizations?
Yeah, absolutely. It's all collusion, and Wikipedia does play a huge impact in all of it too. And what they do is they'll put out numerous articles at one time, right? And filled with lies and deception, same talking points. So if 10 organizations or more put out these articles on Patriot Prayer or Alex Jones or whoever, then when they get blamed for putting out misinformation, they all point fingers at each other. So no one's responsible. Same thing with Wikipedia. Wikipedia is always putting in false information, and they can blame it on that. And so that allows politicians like Mayor Ted Wheeler, Nancy Pelosi did this. A lot of politicians do this to me. They spew out a lie about me, and when they're called out about it, they point towards some news organization, right? So it's all collusion. They all work together. To give you a really good example of how they use the internet, the politicians, the media, and all that stuff, all in collusion, what I learned was that, like, the best example I can give is Berkeley. The 2017, this is after Charlottesville, I had a rally scheduled down there, and Nancy Pelosi called me a white supremacist, said we're having a white supremacist rally. And all these media outlets started posting white supremacist rallies coming into Berkeley over and over and over again, right? Repetition is what gets people to believe in the lie. And so they do, what that does is that garners up all the hateful protesters like Antifa and communists and even moderate liberals, right? Because there are moderate liberals who are good people, but they justify violence in a way because they seriously think like a bunch of Nazis are coming in to like kill people, right? So they build up that whole thing, and then the local mayor will have the police stand down. So the goal is that you have no one coming into Berkeley preaching about God and freedom, because they'll just send Antifa to go and beat you up. And see, what I realized is it was a scam. They can't have the police come after us and beat us up. The country would never accept that, right? But they can have the police stand down and work up all these Antifa and have them attack us. Now, the thing that I realized is that while they do kind of control Antifa, they don't fully control Antifa. It's kind of created a monster itself. So what I learned to do was use the mob mentality against the politicians. So August of 2017, before the rally, Nancy Pelosi was literally sticking up for Antifa, literally talking about how good Antifa is because they're beating up Nazis, right? Like, this is pretty one of the highest, Democrats in our nation,
arguably
literally sticking up for Antifa. And so what I did is I took advantage of their mob mentality, used it against them. We walked in with their hands up, took a beating, right? The very next day, Nancy Pelosi disavows Antifa, right? So that's when I started to learn that they kind of control Antifa, they kind of don't, and they use news articles, they use Wikipedia, they use Google, right? Censoring the Google search results. It's amazing. Everyone knows this, but when I search my name on DuckDuckGo or Google, completely different results, right? Mm-hmm. So these people who hear that I'm a white supremacist, if they go on Google and they search, Google's going to make sure that they put the right articles up that verify that I'm a brown white supremacist, right? It's unbelievable. Yeah. And so, yeah, I've seen it. I see it all the time. And that's seriously why nonviolent resistance is the only answer with these mobs. It's the only answer.
Because so Joey, yeah. I want to add on to what you're saying, because you're saying that Google returns a lot of negative results, and that's different than DuckDuckGo and Bing and Yahoo and the other search engines. So the reason why we haven't been able to sue Google in the past is because of Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act, which gives them a legal shield against defamation and other liabilities, as long as they are a platform. Neutral. Yeah. Now that we're proving that they have severe political bias and that they're using that to re-rank the results, what that means is that if they lose Section 230 protections, that means that when they give you search results, what they're actually doing is that they're publishing information, which also makes them liable for libel and defamation. Just something to keep in mind.
Yeah, absolutely. When I first found out about that, I was really happy to hear about that because it sounds like there may be a way through this, you know, because it's true, because it's really sneaky. You know, the way that they look at it, it's kind of like instead of actually publishing false information, they just make sure people see it. You know what I mean? It's so crazy, but it's really smart. It kind of reminds me. There's this friend of mine actually got caught in this gambling ring. It was really interesting. For some reason, this always stuck out to me. I never stopped thinking about this. So these guys were trying to figure out a way to cheat at blackjack without getting caught. So traditionally, in blackjack, people always cheat when they win. So if they win a hand, they'll switch in chips for bigger chips, right? So what they did, so that's when they think someone's cheating, they only look at the times when they're winning. This is kind of a little bit off subject, but what they decided to do is only cheat when they lose. So they always bet a lot of money, but when they lose, they switch it out for a smaller amount. But that's like kind of what Google did. You know what I mean? Like instead of like publishing misinformation, they just made sure there's a top of the results. And it has a huge impact. I mean, everybody uses Google. Everybody. Oh yeah. So anyone who wants to search my name, you know, it's going to be white supremacist, Nazi, fascist, far right, all these things, violent. Like people think that I get in fights. Yeah.
You know, go ahead, Thomas.
I just think these things have been honed through, like, and you can watch it from I want to say the Red Revolution onward. These tactics have been honed and sharpened, and it's really about the basic controlling. You control knowledge, you control what people see, and you can control everything. If you can control what people think, like if the government could, they'd reach in all of our brains and make us think what they want, but they can't do that. So short of that, they can control search results. They can control the media. That's why you see on Netflix, you see what do you get on Netflix? You get what's that? Break the house down or rock the house down, and you see this severe disconnect. I don't know what just happened with my computer.
I can
are you guys still seeing me?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're good now.
I don't know what the hell that was. But you see, they put things in front of you of what they want you to believe, and there's this severe disconnect. You look at the Dave Chappelle special is the best example of the disconnect between the establishment and the people. And it's like you want, and I watch this because I work in a place where I work with a lot of older age people, like elderly people, and all they watch is CNN. And it's like living in two different worlds. It's like it's literally like living in two different worlds. There's reality, and then there's the left. And it's like, how many of these people have actually had the opportunity to see the facts? You know what I mean? Because they're still depending on this whole big system that's put in place to give them the truth that they thought they could get from it. So it's like, it's insane how big the disconnect is, but it's been honed for so long that how do we beat it? And I see Zach is one way to beat it, is to change the minds of the people inside the companies
from within.
So they start, saying, okay, well, let's tell the public what's going on. And we see a lot with Project Veritas. And then we see people like Joey Gibson doing the on the street civil disobedience. And Zach too, as well. I think I saw something about you at Antifa you had shown me, but it's going to take a combination of everybody kind of chipping in and waking people up. And too much I see people, I want to go out there and I want to fight them. But the thing is, that's exactly what they want you to do.
Mm-hmm.
What you need to do is civil disobedience. And that's kind of why I wanted to do this broadcast. Is I just kind of want to bring it together. That's why we're doing this. That's why we're showing there's many different ways to do it, but civil disobedience, self-sacrifice is the only way out of this. I'm going to hand it over to you, Joel, because it seemed like you had something that you wanted to say.
No, absolutely, and I agree with everything that you just said. Very, very good points there. It's all mind control, really. So, in other words, we can't get into their brains. Therefore, we need to resort to the next best option, which is to skew search results, mess with technology, which almost everybody in the world uses. So, of course, like I said, it's the next best thing. Now, a couple things that I wanted to address, because there was so much that I want that piqued my interest between that little dialogue that we just had. Now, something with Joey is you mentioned something interesting that I've been through as well. So I actually attend public events as well, mainly in my state of Florida, in Orlando, when I can. And back in August, actually, I had attended a drag queen story hour. I'm sure you're familiar with that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. So basically, drag queen story hour, they wouldn't let us in. Number one, I had my camera, my microphone out, this one right here, and a leftist had actually bit the top of my microphone for asking just a simple question. I asked her why was she here. Just went after it, no reason whatsoever.
Next time, put a dress on.
And, yeah, right. Then I can yell assault. But it's just fascinating to me, because this isn't the first time I've been assaulted at one of these events. Somebody actually spit on me at a pride parade as well, and fun stuff, But the thing is, I had some very good footage from the drag queen story hour. I captured pretty much everything that was going on outside, because there had to be like 100 people outside. You had one side in the sidewalk with the leftists who supported the drag queen story hour, and then on the other side, on the street, you had the religious protesters. And I was pretty much just recording all the dialogue just so people could get a glimpse of what really goes on at these events. Now, when you look up Drag Queen Story Hour on YouTube, my video doesn't come up until about maybe 3 or 4 pages in. If you look at the first 2-3 pages, and even so forth afterwards, it kind of just gets mixed up. It's mainly, and this is for Zach as well, it's mainly mainstream media. NBC, MSNBC, CNN, The Guardian, just tons of corporate media outlets. And it really goes to show, and of course, YouTube is Google, and it really goes to show that they're really working hard to suppress independent content and independent media. And, that was one thing I wanted to address. Now, the other thing is, Zach mentioned something pretty interesting a second ago along the lines of how you really can't sue Google, right? Now, Tulsi Gabbard comes to mind when I talk about that. Now, Zach, you know more about this than I do. Can you tell us a little bit about why Tulsi Gabbard is suing Google, and if you think that she has a shot in this case?
Yeah. So the reason why I believe that Tulsi Gabbard had her account disabled directly following the DNC debates was because of a vulnerability that Google has left open that was exploited either by employees of the company or some sort of third-party outsider. And the way that this hack works is that if you have someone's Gmail account which is tied to their ad account, then you can create a bunch of spam emails that look exactly like that email address, but are one letter off. And so what happens is that you start getting like this network of spam accounts. They start pushing out spam. And then what happens is that the Google AI comes over, it sees it, and then just takes down the whole network, including
the original
target address. Yes. So,
correct.
Yeah. So this was a long-standing bug. As far as I know, Google has never like corrected it. And now, you know, Tulsi Gabbard is going to sue Google for having her account taken down because like she's a presidential candidate and Google waited 6 hours to reinstate her account. Like that's pretty ridiculous. So, you know, I reached out to her lawyer and wrote him an open letter that I posted on Medium about how they can do discovery on Google and open them up because, you know, if Google's going to do this, then let's let it result in a lawsuit that will force them into public discovery. And that's the one thing that they do not want to happen. In fact, Google throws up a firewall and they will fight tooth and nail to prevent anyone access to their network systems.
Correct. And so interesting what you said. So essentially, you can have a ton of different spam accounts, spam emails that all look similar. And instead of distinguishing between the inauthentic ones and the authentic one, in this case, Tulsi, of course, being the authentic one, they just go ahead and mass ban all of them, right? Without any sort of separation. And the thing is, I don't know if this is true, but I would imagine they have the power to fix something like that, right?
Yeah, they do. There's no excuse. Like this is a really simple programming error. Like all you have to do is look at the timestamps, you know, because these people that are troublemakers are usually lazy. So they're going to create all the spam accounts in like one day, and then they're going to immediately start sending spam out. And as a result, the timestamps on the account creation are going to tell you all the information to know about which is authentic and which is not. So, you know, if the AI comes around and says, oh, look at all these spam accounts, it's going to be like, well, you know, is this real or is this false? Oh, this account was made 2 days ago. Like, bye-bye, right? And then, oh, this one was here for the last 10 years. We'll keep it.
All right, we get it. That's it. This is legitimate. Correct. Absolutely. And it's funny because, you know, they always say, oh, it's a conspiracy theory. None of this is actually going on. But we actually have, which is revolutionary, all of your testimony. And now we have a presidential candidate who's actually filing a lawsuit against the biggest company in the world. Isn't that fascinating?
Yeah. And now we've got 50 state attorney generals probing Google. And as I just posted on my Twitter account today, these 50 AGs are expanding their probe from just their search market to also general user search. I'm sorry, instead of their ad market, their general user search. And so this is exactly where they need to go. You know, Google is using its search in order to manipulate the information or, you know, manipulate the access to information that voters are trying to use in order to figure out which candidate they want to support. And and I was telling myself that no real progress is going to be made until the AGs open up a probe into Google's, you know, search manipulation. They're opening that up, as it was reported today by CNBC, and like, woohoo! Like that's great. I'm like super excited.
I have a question. I have two questions. I have one for Joey, one for Zach. The one for Zach. What is the best? Like, do you know of the best outlet or the best way for people to get involved and push for the removal of Google's platform protections, if you get what I'm saying? Their protections under I forget they're
already losing it. There's nothing you have to do. It's pretty much foregone conclusion that it's going to be gone. And the reason why is because I'm looking at the moves that Facebook are doing. And they've got a lawsuit against Laura Loomer, and they're no longer using Section 230 defense. What they're now using is a First Amendment defense. So like, well, what we say may be defamatory, but that's our First Amendment right to do so. And the fact that they're now falling back to a First Amendment protection means that they no longer realize, well, they no longer know, they no longer count on Section 230 in order to protect them. And when Facebook does this, my expectation is that Google is going to follow suit.
Okay. And then for Joey, so Oregon, have you seen in the West? The way I see the politics in the West is super volatile, and maybe I'm just getting that because I'm in the Midwest and I only see the super extreme stuff. But do you see people in Portland, in Oregon, in California, Washington? Do you see the conservative side of things? Are they getting more involved as a whole? What is the climate out there? Because I would think that being a guy that I know quite a few militia members, I know quite a few militias. I've been involved. I've done a lot of events, and they're always there. So, what would you describe the climate out in the West as politically?
I think that one of the best ways to answer that to start off is that obviously when you search videos on YouTube, people love seeing, far left people or commies freaking out, having meltdowns, screaming and yelling and all that stuff. That has a tendency to get the most views. So it has a tendency to build this perception that that's the way most of the public is. Actually, I've learned a lot that, especially when I don't know if you guys know this, but I go into Portland now and no Antifa shows up anymore. So that's been a huge win. So I've been able to just go out there and preach, and random people will walk by. They'll be nice to me, they'll thank me, or they'll say they disagree with me, but they respect my free speech. People don't spit on me anymore. I had a lady who obviously politically disagrees with me, but she asked me if I wanted a hug, So Portland is Portland's a real shithole. Okay. It's a really bad area. It's the worst city in the entire country, but even Portland has a lot of good people in there. They're trying to build this reality that we're further to the left than we really are. It's just our politicians who are really far left. The activists on the left are really far left, right? Like if you're an extremist, you're a commie, and you've fallen into that lie, you're going to be out on the streets. You're going to be more motivated to go and be dangerous and stuff. And so that's the film that we get. But Antifa can barely get 10 people together anymore. I don't know if you guys remember 2016, you're talking about thousands of people going against Patriot Prayer or any other group for that matter on the West Coast. And I think that there's been an awakening. I think that when I like to use this example a lot, there's a lot of lies. Let's use me, for example, or even actually Trump's even a better example. You look at Trump, they keep lying about him, right? But the longer you lie about something, people are going to fall off that lie, right? Just naturally. Like it's not like more people are going to join into a lie because you don't have enough to back it up with. For example, when you stick to the same lie that Trump is racist, you say he's racist, he's racist, he's racist, he's racist, and you continue to fail giving legitimate examples, people fall off of that lie. And they begin to see the truth. And what happens is people realize that they're lied to by these organizations, by the establishment, and it's an awakening for them. One good example, when I went down to Berkeley, that was the biggest lie about me that I've seen since I've been doing this. They built up this huge lie, and there's a liberal that was down there and saw me get beat up and saw me go in there purposely with my hands up. And it forced him to do research because he thought that I was supposed to be the hateful Nazi that beats up other people. But I went in there peacefully with my hands up and got beat up by these people called Antifa who are supposed to be on his side, right? Nancy Pelosi said Antifa was a good thing. And he said it was an awakening for him. And he said that he will never read any of those sources that lied about me ever again. He said that he will never vote Democrat because of what Nancy Pelosi did to me. So I think there is an awakening, but there's so much cheating going on. There's so many lies. People are getting thrown into court left and right. I have 3 lawsuits against me. You see Roger Stone, you see Alex Jones, you see all these people. They just found the people who recorded the people of Planned Parenthood admitting that they sell body parts, right? Yeah. They're in court right now for filming them. So,
wow.
See, that's the thing that worries me. We got to start wrapping this up. So I just wanted to get Joel, did you have any more pressing questions that you really needed to ask, or else I'm going to have Zach and Joey kind of give just last minute statements or whatever, things that they might want to say or get out there.
Absolutely. So I guess the last thing, and this is something that I was going to ask earlier as well, but I kind of wanted to frame it correctly. Now, Zach, feel free to say pass if you cannot answer this question. Now, the question was, when this whole thing happened, when you released the documents over to Project Veritas, you said on video that the police began looking for you, and they Google essentially knew what you had done, and the letter, they actually ended up sending you a letter, and it contained about 6 demands. My question is, what were the demands, or at least the highlights? Like, what were the big important ones, and how did it feel? Because it says as well that the FBI and the SWAT team actually came to your house. If you want to confirm.
Yeah, I'll confirm that. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. So there's that. Tell me how you felt about that. And then the last thing is, you said you made a tweet around the same time when this whole thing was unveiling, and you had said you had used the term dead man switch. Can you tell the audience what a dead man switch is?
Yeah. So in answer to your questions, a law firm sent me a letter with 6 demands, and those demands included that I tell them whether I had retained any of their information, to describe who I've shared that information with, demanding that they get access to my personal laptop and that they were going to search it, and for them to get access to any personal backups or other data drives that I had at my house or in my possession. And so I answered back, yeah, I've got your files and I've given it to the law enforcement. And I sent that back to them. And as a result, someone on the inside of Google outed me and started calling me out by my real name and saying that I was the leaker. And so I realized at that point that because we'd only released 2 out of the 950 pages, that Google's advantage was to make sure that those documents didn't get released. So I knew that I had a big target on my back. So I called James O'Keefe at Project Veritas and I said, hey, James, FYI, if I get assassinated, you can release all the documents to the public. And so then I went on Twitter and I put up what's called a dead man switch, which is to let someone know that in the case of death or injury or incapacitation, that something will happen. In this case, that all the documents would get released. As within 4 hours of me posting that on Twitter, police were looking for me. Now, the police ended up having a decoy address, because when I left Google, I knew that I was going to be doing this. So I had given them a decoy address. And as a result, the police in Richmond City of California, which is close to San Francisco, the Richmond police came and knocked on my friend's door. And so my friend gave me a heads up, hey, the police are looking for you. And within 30 minutes, the police were at my real address. And so I didn't answer the door, which is my right. You don't have to talk to the police. And as a result, the police decide to escalate. The way that they're able to escalate is that they saw a tin can next to the gate, and they said to themselves, hey, is this a bomb? So they called in a bomb threat,
oh my
right?
goodness.
And now if they're going to call in a bomb threat, then they've got to shut down the streets, and now they've got to have like SWAT team there, and they've got to have people with rifles on the rooftops. This is like something out of a movie.
Absolutely.
And this was all because I didn't want to talk to the police, and and I finally knew exactly what the red flag laws really, were intended to do, and that was to use it as a way of terrorizing people that are non-compliant in some way. Like, what I did was not illegal. I exercised my right to not talk to the police. And as a result of being red flagged, they stationed themselves outside and called in people with big guns. And I said that I wasn't going to talk to them when I finally picked up the phone, and they said that they would stay there for as long as possible until I came out. And so they said they were prepared to go in shifts. And so what I realized is that, well, if they're going to be reckless to this extent, then it doesn't seem far-fetched that at one point they'll just break through the door and come at me at gunpoint, and maybe something happens and I get shot, and then the cameras don't work. So I decided that the safest thing for me to do was go outside, put my hands up, and let everyone film me as I surrendered myself to law enforcement.
And that's that video where you turn around with your hands up and start walking backwards, right? That's
right. If I'm going to get shot, then I'm going to let 10 cameras film me, and then good luck getting rid of all of that.
Exactly.
So that was my strategy. That's what I executed, and it came out with a good result. Like, I'm still here today. As soon as I explained to the police that I was a whistleblower, they left me alone. So they de-escalated, and then on the next day, I was on a flight to Washington, D.C.
Awesome.
That's amazing.
I'm glad you mentioned red flag laws. We really got to get wrapping this up. But yeah, that's my main thing. I'm a Second Amendment advocate. That's my main thing that I do. I help put an event together to stop Tony Evers from ruining our state with ERPOs. People don't know what an ERPO is. It is an extreme risk protection order. If you say something wrong, if you make somebody angry, they can call the police, and without your knowledge, a judge will issue a warrant for the cops to kick in your door, perhaps in the middle of the night. You don't know. And if you're a gun owner and somebody kicks in your door in the middle of the night, it's not going to be a good thing for either person. So that's a whole nother thing that's connected to everything that we're talking about. But
absolutely.
Yeah, it's a horrible, horrible thing. And if they're trying to get them in your state, you can talk to me and I can help you figure out how to do bond filings. Because every elected official, every public servant is bonded. And if they break their oath, you can file a lien on their bond. That's a whole different issue. But I want to give Joey and Zach just a few seconds or whatever to just anything that you guys want to get off your chest or think that the audience should know. Whoever wants to go first. Joey?
Yeah, I'll go real quick. First of all, I want to thank you, Zach, for what you did. Definitely hardcore patriot, and you did risk your life, no doubt about that. But that's an inspiration for the rest of us. I was watching a video the other day of watching the Hong Kong protests, and I see this kid stand up after the police they've been guarding a bridge all night, and after the police left, all the students came out to join them after the police left, and the student who's been like basically guarding a bridge all night from the police stands up and says, "I'm wearing a bulletproof vest. I've been protecting this bridge all night." He's like, "Where have you guys been? You always show up when it's safe. You always show up after it's over," right? And so I think that really touched me, because I think that people like Zach and doing that, hopefully that inspires other people to stop showing up when it's safe, but show up when we need you. Show up now, not when it's too late, not when it's over. Because if you continue to keep your head down, thinking that you can avoid this, if we lose this battle, they're coming after you and they will find you one way or another, right? So I appreciate what you did, and hopefully it can get more whistleblowers to. I'm sure it already has. And at times when you're feeling really discouraged, Zach, just understand that there's a lot of people who are impacted by what you did that you'll never know. You'll never find out about. So just know that.
Thank you. I'm honored.
Thanks, Joey. And Zach?
For those of you that want to join the fight and help make America safe and free, the way you can help that is by following me on Twitter /Perpetual Maniac. And I'm fighting dragons. I am exposing the deep state, and most importantly, I am exposing Google's manipulation. So if you're tired of Google and you're tired of their manipulation, you want your country to be free, then please follow me at twitter.com/perpetualmaniac and join the fight there.
Awesome. So I want to thank you, Zach. I want to thank you, Joey, for taking the time. I know you guys are busy. A lot more important than I am. Let's just say that. But you guys took the time to talk to a smaller journalistic outlet, of independent, citizen journalists, and we appreciate that. So I want to thank both of you. It means a lot to us. I know it means a lot to Joel. It means a lot to me. God bless you guys. Till next time, everybody. See you later.
Thank you.